Hi, and good morning, and welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series, live on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Our guest today is Wayne Breitbarth, and today we're talking about some features and benefits of LinkedIn for job seekers and employers, which is really, really important right now and very topical. So, hi, Wayne.
Hey, Julie. So
How's
good
it
to
going?
talk to you again. You used to be our neighbors here in
Absolutely.
Milwaukee, and it's so
Yes.
nice to now be neighborly over all these miles, right?
Yep, about 1,800.
So it's all good. I love the technology. I love that you reach out to me, and I'm really looking forward to our time together.
Absolutely. Just to give some our audience a little background, I saw Wayne speak. I'm trying to think, it was about 7-8 years ago when I still lived in Wisconsin. He was speaking for the AMA Northeast Wisconsin chapter. Hey, Green Bay. And Oshkosh, Appleton. And I think we were at the time, it was brand new, the Alumni House at UW Oshkosh. They had literally just opened, and we were one of the first events that they hosted, which we were very grateful. One of our board members worked at the college at the time. And so you came in and spoke about LinkedIn. And at the time, and I misplaced, I still have it. It's just, I think it's packed away. We're thinking about moving. But I have the older version, plus I have the newer version of LinkedIn Success. In that particular event, part of the ticket price, we got your book, which was amazing. So again, 7-8 years ago, LinkedIn still kind of in its infancy, but now it's bigger. So how did you get into LinkedIn? Because you're a CPA.
You are. I am. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Hold off a little bit, because at the beginning of sex, why is a CPA? I'm not listening to a CPA for a half hour.
Right.
Are you kidding? So the strange thing about my entry into LinkedIn was 12 years ago when I owned an office furniture dealership in Milwaukee, and recession, right? Trouble, really bad time for office furniture dealers. And we were trying to find a way to expand the business when nobody wanted to buy office furniture. And I was a CPA guy. I wasn't really a sales guy. My partner was in charge of the sales team. But somebody came up to me and said, Wayne, you ought to check out this LinkedIn thing. And I said, nah, it's Facebook. Not interested. No way. Right? I was all no way. As a matter of fact, the first line in the book says I never wanted to be on LinkedIn. Yeah. And that's true. So anyway, long story short is, when I figured out it was a database, and not really a social media platform. A database first, social media second or third or fourth. I said, oh my gosh, this thing's powerful. And then that was my impetus to read the 3 books that existed. That's all that existed at the time. I devoured them, and I said, this is real. This thing's going to help a lot of folks. 50 million people at that time. That's all. 750 million people now. But here's what's so cool about it. I started teaching classes at my office furniture dealership because everybody was hungry for the info. And I did it for free just to get people in the joint. And at the end of that first year of teaching, my 105th class, all for free. That's 105 classes in a year. My wife came, and we got in the car that night. I said, honey, so what'd you think of my class? You know what I've been doing? She said, now at least I know what you've been doing, instead of having a girlfriend or something, because you've been gone so much. And so what did you think? And she said, it was okay. She's a stay-at-home mom, so she didn't really see it. But she said, but I'll tell you this. They were learning from you. You were helping them. They were taking notes feverishly. She said, so I think we should write a book.
Smart woman.
I know. And at least this was the time I listened to her, and we did it. So we wrote this book together. And then about a year after that, so my second year of LinkedIn was writing the book. And it was only the 5th book to come out on Amazon, and it shot right to the top of the charts. And it stayed at the top of the charts for many years.
Yes.
Now there's hundreds of books on LinkedIn. Ours is still usually in the top 10 for sure on the Amazon ranking. So we're working hard at it yet. You know, now I do this full time. So my office furniture business, I sold back to my partner because I was just having too much fun helping folks with this.
Absolutely. So two follow-up questions with that. Would you want to be in the office furniture business right now during COVID?
Not during COVID, but boy, prior to COVID, at least in Milwaukee, it was popping.
Oh, I bet.
Buildings
Absolutely.
were finally coming back, and downtown was getting real invigorated with all the Pfizer Forbes and stuff. But tell you the truth, I don't want to go back in the office furniture, not because I didn't like it, but because I have really found this space, And I also told you before we went live, that I'm involved in some nonprofits that I love here in town. And that's really where my heart and passion lie.
Mm-hmm.
To really help the folks in Milwaukee. And I'm having a blast with both those things right now.
So big proponent of remote work.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and we've talked about this on the show before with previous guests about remote work specifically, and it brings people together. It sounds so strange that you and I are, about 2,000 miles away, but we're having a conversation and we're able to share it with others live. And that's amazing. I love that, as opposed to, okay, I have to get a plane ticket and go to Milwaukee.
Yeah. My biggest concern with remote work right now is, as I'm teaching at colleges, and I do probably 2 colleges a month, love that. Don't love it as much as I did when I was speaking in the union.
Sure.
But my concern is that the younger folks aren't learning traditional networking.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
Where, like you said, when we met out at UW Oshkosh, we got a chance for 20 minutes together before and a half hour after. And before you know it, we were friends. And I think there's still something to learn from that. And if you don't go through it and learn it, how are they going to get that skill? So I'm concerned about that. Otherwise, I think these tools are wonderful.
We're going off subject a little bit, but I have a feeling that we're not going to have like events for the sake of having events. When we have an event going forward, at least we had a board meeting this week and we were talking about the future of our in-person events. And, we don't know when we can do in person again, especially here in Washington. We're pretty kind of strict, but we're looking at fall, and we're going to be very, very strategic about those in-person events, because we don't want to make people come in for an event just for the sake of it. And we definitely don't want this format to go away. So once COVID has been under control and everybody is vaccinated, we're still going to continue with this series. We're still going to continue with webinars, but that in-person event, it's going to have to be more special. Yeah. So event planners are going to have a little, I hate to say it, but a little more scrutiny.
Most of the conferences and conventions I'm speaking at now, they're all virtual. They used to be not virtual or in person. They're all saying they're going to come back. Maybe next year will still be virtual, but then there'll be a hybrid.
Yeah.
They're going to all do hybrids because they see the beauty of this and the attendance from remote people, but people are clamoring for that, having a cup of coffee, having a beer, sitting down, going to the booth and talking to folks face to face. So exactly. The hybrid model is going to be the answer in this space for sure.
Absolutely. Funny you mentioned that. We have an annual event called Market Mix every year, and obviously not last year we didn't do it. So we, in our board meeting this week, we're talking about possibly fall this year, depending on how things go. We're looking at a hybrid event, and I think people are going to be chomping at the bit. The ones that are able to go in person, they are going to be signing up because we all miss each other.
Yeah, for sure. No question about that.
Absolutely. So we kind of went off on an important tangent, but we did. And the other question I was going to ask is, with your CPA background, do you do the accounting work for the company, or have you offloaded that?
Well, when I was at M&M, I did.
Okay.
That was the reason I was really there, because my partner was the sales guy and I was the bean counter administrative person. And the beautiful thing now is, since I've left that, now I just got this business and my nonprofit work, and in my own business, the LinkedIn business, it's my wife and I, but I still have an outside CPA firm do it for me because I can't keep up with that stuff.
Right. Exactly.
I have a hard enough time keeping up with LinkedIn, let alone taxes too.
Right. Exactly. That's why you pay a professional. You're paying for their knowledge and experience. So pay your CPA.
Amen.
Tax season. So let's actually talk about LinkedIn. And so we kind of talked about how you got started, and then you created your site, Power Formula Net, and you kind of dedicated that as like a resource for job seekers and employers on the best uses of LinkedIn. Can you kind of walk us through how that came to be once you were writing the book, and where the resources and everything came in?
Yeah. So I quickly realized that if I was going to have a book, that I'd have to have a website, and
any marketer will say.
Yeah. And as I strategized about the website, it's my wife and I, right? I mean, we're the strategists and the executors in the business. And we really wanted our site to be very resourceful, right? Yes, I have things that I make money on, right? Buy my book, hire me for your company, come to one of my public workshops, all the above. But I wanted to make sure that my blog was front and center. And if you go to that webpage, you'll see The blog articles are just laid out there. And that's the highlight of the whole first page. Yeah, there's buttons where you can buy something from me if you want, but the big chunk is Wayne's here to give you good LinkedIn stuff for that, right?
Exactly.
Because that's the entry point that people love, of course, right? So I think that's to have a strategy around that and to make that first, right? Because as I mentioned before we went on, or maybe right at the beginning, 105 free classes. So I started in the world of, listen, give. You know, if you're a giver, people will remember you. They'll tell their friends. And if you get enough people that are receiving for free, well, people are going to buy this. And the next thing you know, they'll have you come to an event and speak and those kinds of things.
Exactly. I think the Beatles said it best.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the more you love, the more you get. So I love that model. I think there are some folks that adhere to that model that I really, really appreciate and I respect for that. So, you know, it's from a marketing standpoint, it's like, give them a little taste and then they got to come back.
Yeah.
Give them the good stuff and you've made them loyal. So
and that's gotten that's sort of tricky these days because, you know, as much as this book is only $10, there's still a lot of content out on the web that people could, you could splice together a book like mine, but it doesn't have the continuity and the story and the Wayne personality that comes out throughout the chapters. But a lot of people, you know, I can get that for free. Well, then get it for free.
Right, exactly.
You know, but if you want a beautiful book that holds together well and has proven strategies from somebody who has a little bit of a sense of humor on a pretty dry topic, then pick it up.
It's good. It's very good. And I guess my personal endorsement
I appreciate that.
comes in. So let's actually talk about LinkedIn. And I've joked about this in person and on the show that marketers can basically market anything but themselves. And I'm very guilty of that myself. What do you recommend for job seekers? What are some of the features that they should be using to maximize their profile? I mean, there's the basic stuff, your name, a picture, your headline, you know, and the book goes into it a little more, but what are just some high level things that you could be utilizing? Definitely your bio section should be utilized.
Yeah, so the way I teach job seekers LinkedIn is I start off with this. There's two ways to get a job. You can apply and pray and hope that hope all the computer systems that are filtering things let you through, called the ATS. You should do that. But then there's the disruptive part, the networking part, right? Yep. And you got to do both, and you got to hope for a crash at the company where you make it through the computer system and you work your way in from a friend telling a friend that she's really good. And then there's this crash to go, that's interesting you brought her name up because I heard about her, right? And so I think that's where LinkedIn is so powerful. It's the disruptive part, right? So one of the techniques I share is when you apply for a job, right after or even before is okay. Figure out who you know in that company or who your friends know in that company or who's going to be your boss. And there's not, if you figure out, well, I'm going to work for this lady, I can tell just by looking at all the names that are there and think about an org chart in the marketing department. I recommend you send a connection request. Now, some people go, Wayne, I don't know her yet. Why would I do that? I say, because you know what your goal is? She's going to look at your profile. And she's going to say, he's aggressive, takes initiative, understands LinkedIn, communicates well with a nice, well-written note. I said, all of those things can take place even if she never decides to hit the button to say, sure, she wants to connect with you. So that's disruptive.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that kind of comes up, going back to my joke that marketers can market anything but themselves. And I think part of that is not knowing how to market themselves, because we don't like to, at least for myself, I don't like to brag. And there's that hesitation. I think some people might have that hesitation of not wanting to reach out because I don't want to bother that person, or, you know, obviously the worst thing that they're going to do is ignore you, but so what, you know, and some people still might have that, that hesitation. What is your advice for them, you know, that they're still a bit nervous before they hit send?
Yeah. So you brought up two hesitations, bragging and bothering. And they both start with B. And I talk about them that way, bragging and bothering. The bragging part is, listen, if your profile doesn't lay out how perfect you are or how good you are or what you've accomplished. And you hope and pray that during the interview, you'll share that, because then guess what? You're being compared every day by a whole bunch of people whose profiles look like they're the same. And then they look at yours and go, well, everybody's better than him.
Right.
So you got to get past the bragging, because listen, somebody told me years ago, it's not bragging if it's true. It's not bragging if it's true.
It's very true.
So you got to get your profiles all tuned up and be confident in that. But then on the bothering side is, listen, your goal with LinkedIn and your resume is to get the right folks to look at it. And as long as you're not being obnoxious, like sending to the same person, boom, 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 which you can't even do on LinkedIn. You can send one invitation to them with a nice note. If they decide to hit ignore, you can't again. And so you get one little chance to write a nice note. That's not a big bother, but remember, they need to hire someone. That's why the job was posted. So you're not bothering them.
Good point. So marketers, it's ultra direct marketing. It's an audience of one.
And the only person in that strategy I just shared that doesn't like you doing this is not that person, your hiring manager, because they ultimately want to get the best person they could. And they learn about, but it's the HR department. And I mean, I speak to HR departments and I do it in love and jest, but I do say this, listen, your job is to bring the right candidates with whatever system you do to the hiring manager. And you use a computer system, an ATS system, because that's what you have to do, because you get way too many resumes. So you're just doing your job. Don't take it personal when a hiring manager says, hey, this lady reached out to me on LinkedIn. Was she on your little list over there? No, she didn't make it through the system for some reason. Well, I looked at her profile and she looked dynamite. You mind if I interview her too? And HR will say, fine, it's your nickel, man. You want to do 6 instead of 5? You told me to bring 5. I brought 5. And so they get over that pretty quickly because they just want the right person hired. And you know, if they want to be overly territorial, then they're going to be overly territorial. You got to keep moving because your goal is to get a job.
And, you know, honestly, the worst, you may not get that job, but maybe it's for the best.
Hey, if you've done everything you can and you still don't get it, then it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
But if you're not doing these techniques, these disruptive techniques, and hey, Wayne, it ain't working. What's not working? Well, I'm applying a lot. What about the other stuff? Well, I don't know. I just never got around. I don't feel good about it. Okay, then don't. Then you know what? I'll see you in 4 months at my next LinkedIn job seeker class, and my heart's going to break for you. Yeah. But you haven't been doing the things that work.
Exactly. So I don't feel like I'm attacked right now, but I feel like maybe I need to take a look at my profile. And I do try to do that every maybe 4 to 6 months. How often do you actually recommend taking a look at your resume, or not your resume, but your LinkedIn profile? Like once a month?
So if you're not in a job search, if you're not in an official or even an unofficial, but a hard job search, if you look at it every quarter or twice a year, it's fine. But if you're in a job search, even official or unofficial job search, then you've got to be almost tweaking it weekly-ish because you're learning more keywords. See, that's the thing, Julie. It's a database of people that relies on you putting keywords in the right spots of your profile and the words that, in this case with job seekers, the hiring managers are looking for. So like a perfect example is the skill section.
Yeah.
Most people are so confused by that, and it's understandable why they're confused because LinkedIn doesn't send rules out about anything.
Right.
What they don't understand is that section is now completely manageable. You can get rid of the stupid words now. You can add the words that you want to put in there, and you can rearrange. Nice. Order is important. From top down to this is my 30th skill I'm going to load, but it's the least most important. But I want to still come up in the search because I know how to use, HubSpot or whatever it is, right? So when you're doing a job search, you might be tweaking that as you're applying to different jobs so that you come up in searches for that job.
I'm glad you answered that, because that's been a noodle scratcher for me for quite some time in the times that I have been a job seeker. Is I'm applying to, say, 3 to 5 jobs per week, and doing what I can to make my profile fit those job descriptions. But then I get to that skills section where it says, I don't have Microsoft Excel, but I'm like, I have Excel experience, but I have it listed as Microsoft Office in my skills. But what do you do for those folks that, they're applying to a couple jobs per week and you have to tweak those skills, but you still want to make sure that you have all the skills? How do you manage that? What do you recommend?
So first off, the point you brought up about Microsoft Office and Microsoft Excel, if the job postings are saying either, then you got to have them both over there. Direct matches are important.
Okay.
Now, how do you recommend the moving target of the job search?
Yes.
Well, today I apply for this and Friday I'm going to apply for this, and they're a little bit different. You just got to do the best you can.
Okay.
Because what you don't know is, even if I tune my profile up today because I love this job and I want this job and I push apply and my profile's good and my resume's been tuned up with the right keywords, you don't know if that HR person's on vacation.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And is not going to run her ATS system until she gets back from vacation, and then you moved on to 2 other jobs. You just don't know. But you know what you're back to? That's one part. Apply and pray. Be disruptive. If you do the disruption part, that you can control. You can't control the ATS system and that timing on that. And so if you're only relying on the application and the praying and the ATS, then that's not even half the job search as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a third. I think if you spend 2/3 of your time on those networking techniques, you're going to get your job.
Yes, absolutely. Because it always comes down to, who do you know? It really comes down to, or you're in the right place at the right time. It's like, well, no, you've positioned yourself to be in the right place because you've done the work. And so I kind of want to know, in your opinion, is looking for a job full-time if you're using LinkedIn? Or
I don't think it has to be full-time, because I think that if you structure a cadence, in other words, if you sit down and spend a half hour, if you're in a hard job search, official job search, half hour a day on LinkedIn, and you can get done what you need to get done. And that can be, it's not full-time, of course. So now, especially with tools like what we're doing right here, I mean, think about it. When we used to set up networking appointments with our friends to tell them about our job search, it was a cup of coffee driving across town. Now we can have a bunch of those running right in a row with 20 minutes with her and 20 minutes with him. And we boom on, we boom out, we're gone. And so it's much more efficient, this networking component of a job search, because of the Zooms and stuff.
Absolutely. I do want to ask one more question before we kind of switch it to employers and recruiters. As for LinkedIn, I know for folks that talk about resumes, you should only list about 10 years. But when it comes to LinkedIn, how far back should you really list? Like, especially if you've switched careers, do you even mention your old career, even though there might be some overlap?
So you want to include all the job entries.
Not all of them, the highlights.
You want to include all of the job experience entries if they add to the story that makes you more interesting, because, or they're companies of credibility, even if they're in a different department, or if working for that company is one where somebody might do a search and goes, I love people that have either worked for that company or used to work for that company because they train those folks so well, like us.
Okay.
And so the job entries can go a lot further back than your resume.
Okay.
But only if they fit the story.
Gotcha. Right? So me putting on my working at Hollywood Video 20 years ago may not be.
Probably not, unless if you go apply for a job that says, one of the most important things is you got to be really good at customer service, right?
Yeah.
You go, you know what? What's better than Hollywood Video?
Right. Exactly.
As a kid, right? It shows that you were indoctrinated in the customer service and you stayed a long time in a hard job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, that was 20 years ago.
So there's a story behind that.
Okay.
And that's the critical part, whether it's LinkedIn for job seekers or LinkedIn for sales guys or LinkedIn for marketers. LinkedIn is a beautiful storytelling tool.
Yes.
Use it that way.
I like that. And kind of bringing it together, like you've been saying, like it's a database with SEO, but you're able to tell your story.
Better
That's
than
amazing.
a resume. Exactly. Resumes are like legal kind of things with dates,
Mm-hmm.
and formats, and page numbers, and all that crap.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, you can really have a lot of fun,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get quotes from some of your past employers and put them in the
Yeah.
job entry. You don't have room for that on the resume.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
think outside the box. I was teaching a career class to a college just 3 weeks ago. And so they're all seniors in college. And I said, you got to have your stories in your back pocket for the
Mm-hmm.
interview,
Mm-hmm.
at least 3. But
Mm-hmm.
all 3 of those stories should already be documented on your LinkedIn in the job section where that story took place, just like a story. Let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you a story about how I showed leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Story. It's
Exactly.
beautiful.
Exactly. So, I mean, essentially, your resume is really just a snapshot of your entire LinkedIn profile. I like that. I like that. I like that. We talked a lot about job seekers, which is actually very important, especially now things are starting to open up, not necessarily open up, but more jobs are open again. But at the same time, recruiters are having some issues. What do you recommend for recruiters at this point when they're using LinkedIn? What are some features that they should be using, or just some practices?
Yeah, so I think one of the best practices is if you step back and ask your client, let's say you're an outside recruiter, right? And you got a client who hired you to hire a person with digital marketing experience, blah, 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 is to think about who are the good companies
Mm-hmm.
that digital marketers love to work for. They get trained a lot, and answer the questions. These are the best companies in town. And
Mm-hmm.
then do a search right into that company using the keyword digital marketing or HubSpot or whatever it is you need, and then bring those profiles up. And here's your candidates. I would start with that kind of search because you already know the companies that do a good job preparing people for your job. So
Mm-hmm.
that's number 1. Number 2 is to do searches regionally, but then use a feature on LinkedIn called a search alert, which most people don't know about. That
Mm-hmm.
you can set certain criteria, location, 10 different company names, different kind of skills. The list comes up, you work that list, but then in the right-hand side of the search, there's a place for you to set a search alert so that from that point forward, every week, LinkedIn's going to send you new names that meet that search criteria. So it's an ongoing, here's 3 new names, there's 3 new names.
Mm-hmm.
That's so simple. It's crazy,
Yeah.
but most people don't know that exists.
Nice. I think I knew that existed more for job alerts, but I've never had to use it as a
For
recruiter.
people too, right?
Yeah.
You can set up a people search alert once you've developed the criteria you like and you say that list is good.
Nice. Excellent. So, that's really good. What are other things that recruiters might be missing out on by not using? I know there's obviously some of them, there's a cost to it. Obviously, I know there's where you can do your job posting. There's more to it than that, right? I mean,
I think the thing that recruiters should really lean into is getting referrals from some of their past placements because they know other people just like them because they're in AMA or they're in the CPA groups or whatever they're in. And one of the tools on LinkedIn is so cool in that I can push a button, put your name in the box, and then I can put in the right titles of the city and all this stuff. And I think to myself, oh, look at this. Julie knows these 7 folks that look great. I'm going to reach out to Julie. Now, this takes some time, but I think it's worth the time.
Yeah.
Hi, Julie. How you doing? I notice you have these 7 people in your network.
Mm-hmm.
I help place you. I would just like to talk to those people if you think they might be in the game for a new job.
Sure.
And think about how cool it is because then you can tell me she's not very good, Wayne. I met her a few times. You're right. You can almost help me do my vetting. So when I don't go after all 7, I go after the 3 that you say, these are the 3, Wayne. And 2 of them have already said they're not too thrilled with where they're at. You talk about, and I can do that search, Julie, in under a minute.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's basically sales. You're essentially looking for your, I did insurance sales for a while, which I probably should put on my LinkedIn. And one of the things was have your 200 list. Who are the 200 people that you can talk to that either can, give you that sale you need, or they can refer you.
Yep.
And yeah, referrals are huge. You hear it in sales and businesses all the time. I'm sure even in your furniture business, you were talking about referrals. It's everywhere. And my gosh, how valuable. And I see my dog in the background. That's Charlie. He just turned 15. So referrals are always so important. And even on LinkedIn, it's even more important because we are all digital and you want that warm intro.
Yep.
I think that's an incredible feature. So everybody should be using it. So it sounds like almost recruiting. It's almost like a reverse engineer of what the job seeker is doing.
Exactly. You got it. And I teach that to mostly the job candidates, because LinkedIn does a pretty good job at telling recruiters what to do. Like you said, many of them are on the premium, recruiters.
Yeah.
But then I tell job seekers, hey, listen, just follow the money, figure out how LinkedIn is helping recruiters, and follow along. Like the skill section is a perfect example. Recruiters can sort by the number of endorsements in the skill section. Well, what does that mean? That means that you got to get you got to have the right skills in, and you got to get endorsements, because you'll end up hiring searches. But that's because LinkedIn told us it's good for recruiters. Now you figure it out as a job seeker. Right? It is reverse.
Yes.
You got it.
It makes sense because you're going to the same end. I mean, you're going to that end. So that makes a lot of sense. I just realized after this entire interview, we're both in the corner. And it might look like we're in the same room, that we're looking at each other. No, we're far apart. So that was really funny. We did go over slightly, but I just want to give you like a few minutes to kind of wrap up. Is there anything else recruiters, job seekers, organizations, companies, actually, I do have one question for you. It has nothing to do with recruiters or job seekers, but should every company have a LinkedIn profile?
Company page, yes.
Okay.
For sure. So they can't have profiles.
A company
although
page.
Some do, and that's against the rules, and it's confusing to people. You need a company page. And the beautiful thing about company pages, Julie, since COVID, LinkedIn has come out with about 4 dynamite features for company pages. Really
Nice.
good. And for the longest time, most of us small to mid-level size companies were really wondering how good LinkedIn was for us, because we didn't want to write a big check to them. Well, they've come out with some nice features recently that I'm going, they finally are starting to help the mid to small, privately held, not a Fortune 500 company. And so, yes, they should have a company page, and they should find ways to engage their employees in their posts. That really helps. But they even gave us like a button for that now. We put up a company page post, a brand new button says notify employees. That's a heck of a nice feature.
It really is.
Yeah, we can now invite our connections as a person to follow our company pages by using a tick mark. All you got to do is put the big list will come up. And so I think company pages are getting better and better. And I'm hopeful someday, actually, that LinkedIn finds a way to really make it economical for a company to spend a little money. It's really not now.
It really isn't. I worked with a consultancy recently, and they're still small, so the budget is still small as well to promote jobs, especially big jobs. And so what they did, instead of going for the instead of listing the job on their profile or on their page, they went with the sponsored ad. So what is your feeling on that? You got to do what you got to do.
I don't have any problem using that second technique, but both are expensive.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
They haven't figured out a way like Facebook that for $50, $100, you'll see some results.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've only built their paid advertising model for the $250,000 a year spend on LinkedIn. And maybe they're going to keep it that way. I don't know.
Hopefully they evolve it. So one last thing, and you just kind of mentioned one, what is one feature LinkedIn does not have that you wish existed?
So I would really like then the LinkedIn Live, which we talked about before we went on the air. If LinkedIn Live worked like Facebook Live, I'd be super excited. They do it LinkedIn Live, but you have to apply for it. And you got to prove that you're already doing a lot of broadcasts and stuff. I think, and especially if LinkedIn Live sits on our profile like a TV box or TV screen, how cool that'd be. And if we had a decent notification system for LinkedIn Live, and people could subscribe that when Wayne went on, I want to know it because he's one of my favorite guys or whatever, right? That feature, I think, will be a game changer. Not stories. They added stories this year. And I'm telling you, I think that's been just a nightmare to people because they don't know what to do with it. It's like, is it really LinkedIn with those?
Yeah, I ignored it.
I know most people have ignored it.
Whoops.
Because it doesn't belong on LinkedIn. It's, you know, why follow Instagram on that? I mean,
right. Exactly. It's almost like you know, what is LinkedIn for?
It breaks it down into saying, why don't you just lean into your strengths, LinkedIn?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And your strength is you got a business community that's waiting for content, business professional kind of content. And you can't do it in a story as fast as that. It's not going to work. And so lean into what you're good at and what your audience, all 750 million, say, this is why I go to LinkedIn. If I want to do that, I'll go to Instagram. I'll go to
Exactly. I don't like how different platforms are trying to add features to look like other ones. And I'm like, just stick to what you're good at. What you basically just said. Just stick to what you're good at. Which, as a job seeker, your LinkedIn profile should show your strengths. As a great segue. We did go over by about 6 minutes, and that's okay. I hope that's okay with you. And
all good, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I learned a lot, and I've read your book, and I learned even more just talking to you, as I always do. It's always fun to talk to you, and I love listening to you. And I'm hoping once COVID is gone, we will come back with our annual event. We'd love to bring you in for that as a workshop. That would be fantastic. And if it's a hybrid model, it'll be a hybrid model.
I'm all about it, my friend. Let me know.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you again, Wayne. I just want to basically say thank you to everybody who has subscribed. We have 48 subscribers. Thank you all so much. When we get to 100, we get to change our unique to a unique URL. So please help us get to that point. We have Wayne's description or links in the description, and please like this episode, all that fun stuff of tap the notification bell. You know the drill. It's YouTube. Thank you so much, Wayne. Have a great one.
Okay, Julie. Be good.
Bye.